Today's, as promised, is alcohol 101. So in terms of can you actually drink and lose fat? So we'll discuss that today. And obviously for the ladies who are present, they actually got wine. So the rest of you are missing out. So Matt's brother sent us a nice blend apparently from California. All right, let's go to the first slide, Matthew. You got to do multiple CDs back there, everybody know. All right, so this will kind of set the tone for the day. I don't want to bum you out in terms of actually how bad alcohol is for you, but what we're going to discuss today is really the effects of it, what it can do to you, but then we're also going to have some good recommendations of how you can actually live with it, and then what you can do with it. So this is actually Dr. Amaro Pasquale. He actually wrote the book Right for Your Blood Type, the Paleolithic Diet. He's a kind of a physician slash dietitian. So we're going to use some of his information in terms of how alcohol will actually affect your body. The main thing to take away from this, and the recurring theme that you'll see in these slides, is that alcohol actually kind of halts the fat burning process. What it's going to do is your body's going to revert and kind of stop processing any other kind of carb or any other kind of protein or any other kind of fat, and it's going to start oxidizing alcohol first. So everything else gets kind of shut off. So that's kind of the problem with when when I say in excess, I'll give you recommendations of what's suitable throughout the week. We're obviously not assuming everyone's an alcoholic and they drink consistently, like throughout the day, all day, each night. But there will be a limit to that. Next slide, Matt. Okay, so this is somewhat small font, so for some of the people watching at home, I'll read it. So the first effect, we're actually going to talk about how fat directly affects metabolism. This is also assuming that we're drinking at the same time that we're eating. So we're eating a meal and we're drinking alcohol. So carbs and proteins suppress fat oxidation, meaning it stops your body from actually breaking fat down via elevation in insulin. What we talked about a couple weeks ago was we're trying to control insulin. We want to keep insulin somewhat level, and we want to avoid insulin spikes. Insulin spikes, when that happens, your body is much more likely to store whatever you're taking as a fat. Insulin is either a storage hormone or a release hormone. So if we can keep insulin stable by keeping our sugar levels level and avoiding excess sugar throughout the day, processed carbohydrates, refined sugars, those type of things, it would be much easier to not store fat throughout the day. So that's kind of what we talked about, which we'll recap today too, about how your diet should really follow. So you could eat kind of what you want sometimes and not store fat that easily, but still lose fat throughout the day, because there is a specific timing mechanism to that. The micronutrients do not contribute to fat synthesis, meaning breaking down fat in any way by themselves. And again, since fat oxidation is suppressed, dietary fat will be stored in fat cells. So when we're drinking, especially if we have a fat in a meal, your body's going to kind of store it because it's not going to use it right now. It's going to have to burn through the alcohol in your system first before it can do anything else. So again, kind of one of the drawbacks to that. As the hours go by and insulin drops, that's when your fat that is stored in a fat cell will start to be released. This bullet point is actually one of the byproducts, the benefits of a lower carbohydrate diet. This is why typically a somewhat lower carbohydrate diet, if someone were to eat it on a routine basis, it's easier to lose fat and keep fat off, is because insulin levels would be low consistently. And so your body would have to revert to using stored body fat as a fuel source throughout the day, not just throughout the night. And fat storage is an ongoing process, and fatty acids are constantly entering and exiting fat cells throughout the day. So net gain or loss is more or less directed by calorie input and output. So again, kind of what we talked about in the first lesson 2 weeks ago was, at the end of the day, calories are very important. Okay? Not only with the right calories, but there is a certain balance. Even if we're eating the right things, the best things for you, too much is still too much. So there does become a break-even point. And kind of recap that, kind of how I came up with that, it's really honestly roughly 12 times your body weight is kind of where your calorie content for the day, your calorie amount would come into play. And that's where we start looking at people's diets, and then the next thing is we'll look at food choices. We'll look at the sugar intake and those type of things. And then if fat isn't coming off how we want, we'll drop the calories just a little bit, especially when the food choices are good. And then the last thing is if we throw alcohol in the mix, it gets immediate priority, again, shutting everything else off and going straight to the alcohol in the substrate hierarchy. Alcohol puts the brakes on fat oxidation and must be burned first. So again, that's to recap, then one of the main drawbacks of alcohol is it shuts everything off, and your body reverts to use it as a fuel source, and it won't break anything else down while fat's in your system, or alcohol's in your system. Next slide. We're getting there. All right. So what does it actually mean? When you drink, your body stops processing all of the nutrients to first metabolize alcohol, the byproduct acetate. This means your fat loss process can be halted up for 10 to 12 hours. So I actually did see another study on this that said 16. So it's going to vary. It's going to vary. Some of it's going to vary with how much you drink, how often you drink. This is some of the bad news, but we will get to some good news, I promise. But the first point of this is just educating you on what it is, what it's going to do to you, and then we'll move on from there. So it is a sugar, though. That's the important thing to understand. And any sugar will elevate insulin levels and make it easy to store things as fat. So again, the danger with this one is typically we're not just drinking; we usually eat things with it. Yeah.
Better not to eat.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of true.
On your side.
And what she said was it'd be better not to eat when you drink. And one of the things with that to actually help control your blood sugar levels would actually be eating just a protein while you drink and avoiding carbs or sugars or fats with it. And it actually that protein will help stabilize your blood sugar level, so it won't be all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a trick to it. Plus, protein is very thermogenic, so your body's going to burn a lot of calories just to break protein down. So if you were to take it and then you have it with the alcohol, it's just going to burn through the alcohol, then it's going to revert to the protein in your system anyway. So you don't have anything really to store as fat, because even too much protein could be stored in fat. It's a very long physiological process, but it's a very hard process for your body to do that. The important thing to note, and I've actually got 3 slides of all the most popular beverages, their exact caloric content, what's in them, and so you'll be able to see what will be a good decision to make. Alcohol actually has twice as many calories as a carb and a fat. So again, kind of one of the drawbacks. It's about 7 calories or so, where protein and carbs are 4, and fat is 9. So we're going to look at that here in a second as well. But then the other thing too is alcohol is a toxin. Your liver has to process and metabolize. Next slide. So we'll get into some calorie contents here of beverages. So I also broke it down by alcohol content, because that's going to come into play here in a second. I've seen cheaper versions of beer and certain things. This beer actually I've set up as 5% for some of our calculations. Their average is at 3%. There's a lighter beer, which is going to be lower in calories. But one of the recommendations we're actually going to have as we go through this is that, and as I mentioned to these ladies earlier, is when they're talking about different alcohols, a trick to not drinking much, again, is drinking something that's stronger. So that's why, one, we're serving wine tonight and not 100 proof liquor, but we should be able to drive home. But the other piece is that wine is obviously twice as strong as beer, so you're not going to drink that much into the wine. When Matt and I were discussing this the other day, one of the things, especially with like a light beer, I mean, and if you're used to drinking, you can drink several glasses. Well, you'll see here in a second, I mean, the average light beer is 100 to 120 calories. So if you put away 7 or 8, like some people will, on a routine eating, I mean, you're pushing almost 1,000 calories of sugar and carbs, and that's all that's in it. So your body has to burn through that, and if it's going to stop your fat metabolism for 12 hours, that's on the average, I think, 3 or 4 drinks. So if you have, 7 or 8, that's several different hours. You switching, Matt?